Ask Mike, brought to you by the Stadium Shop on Razorback in Fayetteville.
Happy Monday, everybody. It's another edition of Ask Mike. Courtney Mims alongside Mike Irwin. Mike, we've got a lot of questions to get to this week, so we better jump right in, right?
So you're back, right?
And I'm back. I'm here. Yeah. I'm ready. I'm ready to go.
Alyssa stood in for you last week.
She did. How'd she do?
She did fine, but we had a question for you last week because you weren't here. Now you will get the question.
Okay.
I can't answer a question for you.
Okay. Well, I'm excited to hear what my question is, but let's jump right in to those questions, shall we? TL Slayton says, a lot of our fans are complaining about Pittman's new contract and blaming the 7-6 season on it, like he suddenly got money hungry. I saw this week where he's actually 2 from the bottom in SEC coaches' salaries. I don't get the problem here.
You know, I think the issue started, honestly, when he first took the job and he said, look, he pretty much said in so many words, and I don't remember the exact wording, that he didn't even really know what was in his contract. He didn't care. He just wanted the job. And they took that literally, and I don't think he meant that literally. Sam Pittman's no dummy. He's not going to just take a job because he doesn't even know what he's being paid. But it's never been about the money, and it's not going to continue to be about the money. And it is about being here, and he's not going anywhere else. And those are the important factors. But I think some people, when he initially had an agent who I think was a family friend who happened to be an attorney, and they all liked that idea, hey, this is not a regular agent, so he can't be like all the other coaches, you know. And then when he changed agents and got Jimmy Sexton, they were all like, Jimmy Sexton, this means he's a jerk. He's just like everybody else, he just wants money. What they didn't pay attention to at the time was the contract that he ended up with, which was better than his first one, but he didn't exactly like become Jimbo Fisher overnight. You know, he just got more money.
Yeah.
And now we see that a year later, I don't know if he's 2 from the bottom. Vanderbilt's coach, I guess they can't reveal what he gets paid because it's a private school, and they don't list that. And other people have jumped in and said, well, but if you add this in and add that in, Pittman's salary actually was higher than this or that. But that's true of all the coaches. They have bonuses and whatever. It does look like he's down near the bottom. He's not in the upper tier. So if that's a big deal to you, if you like it that your coach doesn't make a lot of money, that's fine. If you think he should make a lot of money, then you probably think give him more money. I don't know. This always is interesting to me because to me the only people that should weigh in on this are people that actually boosters that give money to the program. It's coming out of their pocket impartially. So, or if you buy season tickets or whatever. Look, here's the bottom line with this guy. This was never about anything about, it certainly didn't have anything to do with, oh, I got money now and I'm not going to coach as hard.
Yeah.
You know, we've talked over and over about what happened this past season. Really, the only thing that happened was they had injuries that they didn't have the year before, specifically to the one guy you can't have injured on this team, and we know who he is. So that caused a lot of issues, and then they had a bunch of injuries in the secondary. And that caused people to think that suddenly Barry Odom couldn't coach and the secondary was terrible. And they didn't pay any attention to the fact that the secondary actually got very good toward the end of the season. And I guess their best game was the LSU game, in which Arkansas held LSU to 1 touchdown and a field goal, which to me was amazing. So Pittman didn't suddenly turn into a lazy coach because he got more money, and we now see he's not getting a lot of money.
Yeah.
I do know people that know him, and I've talked to them lately, and they tell me that, you know, he's been in coaching for a long time. Coaching is a very demanding business, and he's found out since he's become the head coach here that it's a lot harder to be even a head coach than it is an assistant coach. It's a lot of work, especially somebody that works as hard at recruiting as he does, because he demands that his other coaches recruit, but he does that too. So it's, you know, he enjoys his downtime when the season is over. We're about to enter the off-season conditioning program, and then sometimes in the summer you'll see this. He's got that home in Hot Springs, which I'm told they've been working on, and now it's pretty much finished. He likes to go down there, be on the lake, likes his little hog that people drive up and say hi to the hog.
Yep.
He's probably out there waving at him. And he likes to go to the races and watch the ponies run around the track. and enjoy life, and that he does not plan to be Frank Broyles and coach at Arkansas for 19 years. They don't know how many years, but they also believe he was thinking to himself, okay, not going to coach forever. Got to make sure I got a contract that at least allows me to be able to retire and have a decent retirement. So all of that was a factor in there. I don't think this guy is going to coach for 10 years. I don't know if it's 7, 5, whatever. I think his goal is to turn this program around and make it relevant in the SEC and leave it for the next coach in much better shape than he got it.
Yeah.
And how much better that is, no one can say. But I think when it's all said and done, people are going to look very fondly on Sam Pittman as being a very unique coach. As a former player, I'm not going to say who he was because he just said this to me and didn't say I could say it on the air.
Okay.
But as he said about Sam Pittman, he said, we finally got us a coach that's not a carpetbagger.
Yeah.
And what he meant by that was an outsider.
Okay.
Somebody that didn't understand Arkansas's culture, that just came in and got paid money and didn't really get it. And he believes Sam Pittman is one of us, even though he grew up over in Oklahoma over there.
Yeah, we won't talk about
in
that.
that direction. But he was close enough that he was a Hog fan, and he's one of us, and he loves to be here. And that's how he's going to be remembered, not about who his agent was.
Yeah, it's hard not to see Sam Pittman in that light, especially when you hear him talk about how much he loves his program, how much he loves his state. It's just hard to think of him as a money-hungry coach. He's just not.
And he's not getting a whole lot of money
exactly.
compared to other SEC coaches.
Yeah, I think I was looking at the how much coaches were getting
paid. There's one that we know definitely that's not making as much as him, and that's the guy they just hired at Mississippi State who hasn't been a head coach before.
Well, that makes sense, but it's crazy to think like people like Billy Napier at Florida is getting a little bit more money than him. That's crazy to me.
I know.
That's crazy, but there you go. Not a money-hungry coach for sure. Curious, Mousetown asks, curious for your reaction to Jimbo hiring Petrino. Also, since you appear to be a fairly conservative guy, why are you so negative toward A&M since it is a very conservative university?
I think we got some A&M fans that don't like this. Boy, how do I explain that? First of all, let me just say that what A&M does is their own business. I don't really care. A lot of Razorback fans think Arkansas is fixing to be in real trouble now that A&M has Bobby Petrino as a play caller.
Okay.
They're not looking at the fact that almost this same scenario happened at Arkansas in 2005 and 6 when Arkansas's boosters decided that Arkansas needed a new play caller, and the head coach, Houston Nutt, kind of got told, you got to have this guy as your play caller, and he didn't like it. It didn't work out. It wasn't a good situation. And I think this one has a potential to be even more disruptive because I don't really see Jimbo and Bobby Petrino as a very good mix, especially when he's been forced upon him. This is what these people don't get. You know, I don't know what the AD's doing there, but if he goes along with this, I mean, you just don't tell somebody that's running a football team, no, you can't do this, you have to do that. Because as somebody told me, and I said this one time to a coach that asked me about it, I said, because he said Frank Broyles wanted him to do this and this and that, and I said, you know, what I know about Frank is he'll fire you even if you take his advice if it doesn't work. So you might as well do what you think you should do, right?
Yeah.
So that's what I think about what just happened here. I'm not sure it's going to work out, and I'm thinking it might be a really bad thing for them, which is good for us.
Well,
so
yeah.
Good. I don't care. About A&M hiring this guy, it's not so much that they hired a guy that had all these problems at Arkansas, because Petrino's gone other places. I think he's had 3 other jobs now. He hasn't had any of those problems. As far as I know, he's turned his personal life around, and those things are behind him, and I'm not a person that believes you don't get second chances, so all that's well and good. I don't like the fact that he did at UNLV what he did with the Atlanta Falcons, which is he took a job and then dumped out on him, and he did it even faster here. He takes a job. Look, and let's look at the Aggies' role in this. There was all kinds of talk, even before he went to UNLV, Petrino, that A&M wanted him. So what were they doing? Why do they wait till he goes to some other school and go, oh, we're A&M, we'll just steal you away. We'll pay you more money, you can come to our school now.
Yeah,
I don't like that. Now, but the whole conservative thing about A&M, I don't know anything about the academic part of A&M. Maybe it's a real conservative, family-oriented university. I didn't go to school there. I don't know anybody that went to school there. I'm not talking about that. What I'm talking about is their athletic program. If I would have no issue with A&M and probably would even like them athletically, if what happened, for instance, was I'm a typical head coach at A&M, I go into a recruit's home and I say the following: hey, we don't buy players. We don't do that. We don't believe in that. What we believe is your son comes to our school, we teach him solid values, hard work, good coaching. That's how you win games. You don't win games because you throw money at people.
Yeah.
And this is what we believe. And so if you feel like your son is one of those kind of people and that's what you are, let him come here because we want somebody like that. And if that was their whole history and the approach they had taken, yes, it would be unusual, especially these days, but I would say that's great. I like that.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, that's not what they've done. Look, I've known people that work there inside their athletic department. I watched this going on even when I was 12 years old, 13, 14, and 15 in the Southwest Conference. A&M has always had these boosters, these oil men, this money, and it's like, we're going to do this and we're going to do that. And they've gotten away with a lot of stuff over the years, but they have a reputation of thinking, hey, we've got the cash, we can win. Look what they just did with their signing class last year. #1 class bought it, and they weren't even trying to hide the fact that they did it. And what did it do? It backfired on them. A bunch of those guys have already left, right?
Yeah.
So this is what I'm talking about. If you were really the conservative, American values, the flag, the cadet corps, the military art, marching and doing all this stuff. But what do we see when we see these videos of the midnight yell practice? They don't get in there and say, hey, we're not about making fun of our opponent because we're not like that.
Yeah, we're above that.
We want you to go to the game tomorrow and cheer for our team. Mm-hmm. Don't make fun of the other team. Don't be a jerk. Let's show everybody we're the best. If they did that, you'd be going, hey, that's pretty unusual. Instead, what do we get? They make fun of the other team.
But badly, very badly.
Call them stupid, and then make themselves look stupid by what they're doing and the way they're doing it. So this is the issue I have with A&M. It's not that if they were what they were supposed to be, I would be opposed to them. I wouldn't. But come on, be what you say you are. Right?
Yeah.
Don't buy players. Don't go around, we got more money, we're going to do this. Sell them on the idea you're going to get better coaching here. We're going to put you in an environment where you work harder. You know why Alabama wins all the time? It's not because they get the best players. It starts there. He works those guys. Mm-hmm. He takes 5 stars and treats them like 3 stars. What if Texas did that? What if A&M did that? Then they wouldn't have the problems they're having right now.
Yeah.
So that's how I look at that issue.
Yeah, definitely. Rob's 4516 says, occasionally I read comments to the effect that media personnel don't ask coaches difficult questions in fear of losing access to the particular program. Do you feel some in the media refrain from asking the hard question? Is losing access really a thing?
You know, this gets repeated over and over to every time somebody gets mad and they want a question to be asked by the media. And they say this. Let me just say I've done this for 47 seasons, covered Arkansas, worked around a lot of sports information directors, 9 head coaches, a couple of interim coaches, 3 different athletic directors. I've never known anybody in the media, legitimately in the media, that was ever denied access to anything because the coach didn't like them or because somebody in the athletic department didn't like them. They may not like your questions. You can go to press conferences and you can ask your questions. They're not going to shut you down.
Yeah.
Here's where the problem comes in. You've got people that apparently watch a lot of TV, and they see on TV, what do they see when it's media people? Some guys walking along, everybody's like, you gotta get me in. And they're sticking microphones and acting like jerks or whatever. They think that when you get in a press conference, you're going to be doing your job if you approach the coach who's at the podium like you're a defense attorney questioning a witness in a murder trial, and you're just going to get all over them. There's ways of professionally asking somebody a question. Let's take a typical question. The play calling.
Yeah.
Kendall Briles, play calling. Okay, that question's been asked many times. I've been in press conferences with, but what they didn't do was, how long are you going to continue to put up with this stupid play calling?
Exactly.
They don't ask it like that. There'd be no point to that.
Yeah.
If you do that, you're not being objective. You're injecting yourself into the question. You're just supposed to ask the question. And then whatever their answer is, that's what it is. And I'm telling you, that's where some of these people come up with, people being afraid that they're going to get access.
Yeah.
Because they're mad that you don't get in there and act like a tough guy. And they want to see these press conferences where you're demanding to know the answer and what is happening here. It just doesn't work that way.
No.
First of all, it's not earth-shattering. We're not talking about the national debt or a war going on somewhere.
Yeah.
We're talking about sports. So, there's no reason to get bent out of shape over this stuff. You just ask the question, why did you do this at this time? What was the point of that? Why did this happen? What was your thinking on this?
Yeah.
And Musselman got asked in his press conference, why when you were doing such a good job against zone defenses in non-conference play, do you suddenly have trouble against them in conference play? And you said, because the zone defenses are better. And that's a good exchange. It's not, hey, why is this suddenly not working?
Yeah.
But there are some people that think that's how you should ask the question, and it doesn't happen, and it shouldn't happen.
Yeah, or they're asking the question, like you said, and they're just phrasing it in a way where it's going to be a good exchange. Like when it comes to play calling.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I remember during the season when reporters would get up and say, well, why did you think this, why did you want to do this? And what was your decision making on this? Like you said, and people don't think it's that question, but it is.
And I will also tell you that how you ask a question has a lot to do with whether you get it answered or not. The people that want you to be a tough guy don't seem to get that you act like a jerk. You're not going to get an answer.
You aren't.
They'll say something to you because they're up there on the podium, but you're not going to get the answer. You're not going to get an answer to your question approaching it that way. So again, it's not that people are afraid. It's that they're not asking the question in many cases in the manner in which other people want them to ask the question.
Exactly. Hog Redneck wants to know, did it surprise you when Briles decided not to go to Mississippi State?
No, I mean, this happened last year. Remember, he was talking to Miami, and then he didn't go, and I think maybe he got a raise, and he may have gotten one this time. I think the whole key to that was this whole thing about KJ and the working relationship they have. And also, there were these little clues, like in the offseason, one of the first things they did in the transfer portal was when they brought in Jacoby Criswell. And when they did that, I knew what was going on, because that was probably the biggest single issue that this football team had last year was when KJ got hurt, they didn't have somebody that could run the offense the way he runs it. It had to change. Play calling had to change, and we saw it didn't work. So if they're going to go out and solve that problem, why do you do that and then have Briles leave? I think that was the biggest issue he had. Think about it. He's got to prepare that quarterback, those quarterbacks, every single week. And when KJ was hurt, he was having to do things differently with the different quarterbacks. So what they've got now is they're going to have three quarterbacks on scholarship come this spring when they go through spring football that will all be running the same offense. And to me, that had Kendall Briles' hands all over it. We got to do this. We can't continue with this problem. So I never thought he was going to leave. I don't know what happens after this year. I still think he's not leaving until he gets a head coaching job.
Yeah.
And we'll see when that happens. But no, I didn't think he was going to Mississippi State. First of all, the quarterback that he's got there is not anything like the real rumor was that he was going to go and KJ was going to go with him.
Yeah.
But what happens to Will Rogers? He just suddenly vanished at Mississippi State. So no, I didn't believe that.
Okay. Well, Go Get Your Shine Box says there are multiple rumors about Dow Loggins having burned his bridges on ever coming back to Arkansas. I'm even seeing that was part of the locker room trouble that may have gotten the former strength and conditioning coach fired. Is there any truth to this?
Yeah, I don't know where that came from. I didn't read that on Hogville. I'm not sure where it allegedly came from. I'm about 99 and 44, 100% sure it's not true. I know Dow Loggins. He's a good guy. Wouldn't do anything like that. He really enjoyed being here at Arkansas. And I think this is why he left. I think he left because he was an offensive coordinator in the NFL, and you're not going to come back here and stay multiple seasons as a tight ends coach. You're used to being the quarterback's coach and the play caller, and he got an offer to go somewhere where that's exactly what he gets to do. Why wouldn't he do that? And what it obviously does is open him up at some point, if it happens this way, to come back as the offensive coordinator and play calling. I don't know if that happens, but that's why he left. He wasn't involved in anything like that. I've talked to all kinds of people over there just to make sure that there wasn't some incident over there, and they said no. I mean, they're not mad at him. They understand why he left, and he wasn't involved in anything that had anything to do with the conditioning program.
Well, there you go. Deep Shoat wants to know, why are online Arkansas fans so danged dumb?
First of all, even though I'll probably get criticized for this, I'm not gonna criticize heavily online fans, because I would start off saying that most of them are actually pretty good.
Yeah.
We only notice the ones that are goobers. You can sit there and read 10 tweets on the internet or on Facebook, a bunch of reactions, and they're fine, and then there's this one person that says something, and then it makes them all look bad, which it shouldn't. So it's actually, we're talking about a small number of people. And I don't think being dumb is what the issue is. I think you've got some that like to stir things up. Now, when I was a kid growing up in my hometown, we had a lot of ants. We were out in the, in the West Texas cotton field area, and there's a lot of dirt around there, and we had ant beds. I don't know how many people are familiar with ant beds, but we had what we called red ant beds, even though most of the ants were black. There were some that were red, but we always called them red ants, even if they were black. And so you'd have these big ant beds, usually on these vacant lots. And my buddy and I used to love to go and just step in the middle of them, because they'd be creeping around all slow in order, doing their little ant jobs, and they were so orderly. And then if you stepped in the middle of it, they just start going bananas and go all over the place. That's what a lot of these people are doing on the internet. Everybody's sitting there reading it, everything's fine, and then all of a sudden somebody puts something really stupid up there, and you get all mad, and they're all running around, and they're responding. And that actually helps the number of clicks. And so it probably makes Twitter people and Facebook people happy, but it's not that they're dumb. They're trying to stir things up. I do think also there are some people that put stuff out there and they're kind of guessing. They're using logic, because I do that all the time. I say something, but I'll be careful to say I don't really have any inside information. This is just logical. What's probably going on. Yeah. Well, I think what they're doing is doing that, but they're not saying I don't have any inside information. They're acting like they do have inside information, and so they could end up being wrong, but it doesn't matter if they're wrong. It's not like me or you or somebody, if you got on there and said something that was really wrong, you'd look silly. Yep. And if you did it enough, you probably wouldn't be in have this job anymore. Nope. But with them, they don't have to worry about that. So that's another type that's on there. And then there are some that I think are simply uninformed. They're not dumb, they just don't know what's going on. Yeah. And I'll use an example, this whole thing, kind of convoluted thing that happened when Barry Odom left to be the offensive coordinator at UNLV. Yeah. Some people aren't looking at the fact that he was also a position coach. He was a safeties coach, right? So that creates an opening for an offensive coordinator, but also for a safeties coach. So when Sam Pittman went to UCF and hired their defensive coordinator, some of these people didn't look at the fact that he was actually a linebackers coach, but you could see from a mile away what that meant. Yeah. Michael Shearer, who is the linebacker coach, is probably, when the bowl game's over, going to go with Barry Odom. Yep. So who's left to be replaced? Well, you still haven't replaced your safeties coach, which was what Barry Odom was. So when Sam Pittman then brought in the secondary coach from Florida State, he was bringing him in as a co-coordinator with the other co-coordinator already hired, but he was also bringing him in as a secondary coach. But some guy on the internet, and I read this, he said, this sounds like Sam Pittman. He's going out and bringing in a secondary coach to coach linebackers. That sounds like something he would do. Now, I don't know that the guy was dumb. I just don't think he connected all the dots. Yeah. He just didn't realize that it was more complicated than you just had this guy leave, Shearer.
Yeah.
So if you hire another guy, he must be hiring him to replace Shearer. He just missed all that.
Yeah.
So rather than being dumb, he was probably uninformed.
Yeah.
I'm being nice to these people.
You are being very nice to these people.
I don't think there's too many dumb people on there, because I think just the fact that you're doing it probably requires a little bit of effort and intelligence.
Oh, yeah. I mean, there's a lot of bad eggs in fan bases. You see them all over the place, right? There were some Mizzou fans on there, you know, showing their stupidity. There was, you know, Auburn fans on there. I mean, you have dumb fans all over the SEC.
I don't think there's so much dumb. I think there's other motives there.
Okay.
You may think they're dumb. I just think, well, this guy's trying to stir things up, or this guy's uninformed, or he's trying to look important and he didn't really know what he was talking about, but it didn't mean he was
Mike,
dumb.
that is so nice of you to say that. That's like very, very big of you.
I don't think I'm being nice. That's what I really believe.
Well, Marty Bird's proxy says, we now have our third great basketball coach at the U of A. The common thread is that all three had superb defensive teams. Can you compare the defensive styles they coached? Do you see Muss's teams as a Nolan Sutton hybrid, or more like Eddie's teams?
No, I see Musselman more like Eddie Sutton. He's more of a man defense guy. Maybe not as intense, because Eddie would rather be shot dead than put up a zone defense on the floor. So he hated zone. I think Muss will use it when he has to. So there's a difference there. And then Nolan, he was a full court trapping guy. He liked to apply full court pressure, but he did it with traps. And he was always proud of the fact that the players themselves had been taught certain things to look at. And when those things presented themselves, he didn't call the trap. They did it on their own. He didn't have to say it. And so that's what he did defensively in the full court. And then in the half court, they would still trap at times, but a lot of times they played zone defenses, and he didn't seem to mind that. So all three are really different. Yeah. But I would say Musselman is more like Eddie Sutton than Nolan.
Yeah, that makes sense.
How's that?
Eddie Sutton would rather shoot a what?
He'd rather be shot dead than put a zone defense on the floor.
I love that phrase. That's great, Mike. To basketball, where Plano Hog asks, why do we only play Auburn once and don't get them at home?
Because the schedule changes every year, because you're not playing every team. Remember, they got rid of the East and West stuff.
Yeah.
And you're not playing every team every year. So it kind of has to rotate year to year. And you went through a cycle where last year Arkansas played Auburn at one time at Fayetteville.
Yeah, in Fayetteville.
This year Auburn plays Arkansas one time in Auburn, Alabama. But 2 years ago, they had a home and home.
They did.
2 years ago, they played each other home and home.
Yes.
So it was home and home in 2000. Arkansas played them only here in 2002 or 2001.
And
then this year, well, it's 2020 actually.
Yeah, 2020. I was like, wait.
It was 2022.
20 years ago,
They played them in Fayetteville only, and then this year they will play them only in Auburn.
Yeah, it
And
switches,
it'll rotate backs probably next year. I haven't looked, but that's that. And look, I don't know what's going to happen when you add two more teams.
Yeah, that's going to be the interesting thing.
Because again, you're kind of getting, and it's going to go to football too. You get away from this East versus West thing, and so they're just sort of rotating. I don't know if they're going to have a pod system in basketball or not. I mean, it's just.
They might just keep with the same and just rotate it still. Maybe add two more mix in.
And this may have been discussed and I just missed it, but it is food for thought.
Yeah, for sure.
It's all probably going to change.
It definitely will. Okinawa Hog says the men's basketball team really struggles on offense. If the defense travels every game, we should be able to have a good season, but not as good as the last two teams. What do you think?
I think that we've learned under Eric Musselman never to make any sort of proclamation or decision about what you think in early January.
Yeah.
Because his teams are always different in February than they are in January, especially early January.
They are.
I think this team has actually had less of that than the others that he's had, but everybody's freaking out because they've lost these two road games, but they're not looking at the fact that they didn't lose them for the same reasons. Like, the simple explanation that people are coming up with is, oh, well, they clearly can't deal with the zone defense, and everybody's going to zone them from now on, so they're doomed. Well, they faced zone defenses in December and did all right. So what was the difference? And Musselman was asked that, and he said because the defenses are better in the SEC. That's one reason. But those two games, LSU and Auburn, were completely different. Arkansas shot way too many threes and was way too lazy about going inside against LSU. They actually had a good game plan against Auburn. They shot 11 fewer threes and worked inside much more and actually got 35 points in the paint, but should have had a bunch more because they had 6 point-blank layups, wide-open layups that were missed.
Yeah, can't miss the bunnies.
Stuff like that just happens. I told somebody earlier today, you can take any basketball season, any football season, you're always going to be able to look back on a certain game or maybe one or two games and go, what was going on there? That didn't make any sense. You know, that's not what we normally do. Why did that happen? And to me, this Auburn game doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
Because Arkansas did the right things, it didn't work out. I saw on the internet where some guy had come up with a formula, and he said, I don't know what he called it, but it's a thing where you look at a team's shooting percentage in certain situations.
Oh.
And then you take each of the shots that were attempted by the two opponents in a game and say, okay, if you shot this shot from here, this is what your percentage of making it would be.
Wow.
And then you do it with the other team. And then you come out with it's a computer thing, and you come out with a projected score.
Cool.
And they said if you did that with this game, Arkansas should have won and actually won fairly handily.
Yeah.
What that tells me is they were attempting the right things, just didn't work out. They missed too many layups, but they were shooting fewer threes and working their offense better, and it just didn't happen for them. And on the other hand, the one thing they did wrong in this game that I think was their defense broke down in the paint.
Yeah.
Because Auburn is not a typical Auburn team this year. They don't have all these three-point shooters. They shot fairly well from three, but not all that great, and they've shot much worse earlier in the year.
Yeah.
So what I'm saying is, if Arkansas had played better interior defense, maybe if they had zoned them, if they had shut these guys out of the paint better, I think they would have forced Auburn to put up more threes, and they would have missed a lot of those threes, and I think that would have been a formula for success. So again, I don't think you can look at this game as part of some formula and say this means this. Therefore, oh no, we're in trouble. The SEC, to me, you've got two teams, Tennessee and Alabama, that I think are better than the others right now based on what they're doing. They are the two teams that I think are going to win some road games, not just one, maybe 2, 3, 4. Arkansas, I don't know. So far, it's not good. But you've got to understand this, too, about basketball. There are 3 seasons to basketball. There's non-conference, and what do you do in non-conference? You're either playing at home or what are you doing? You're going to a tournament which is a neutral thing.
Lots of neutral site games.
Why is that important? Because that gives a coach an idea of how they're going to play on a neutral floor. See, and that's important later on. Now when you get into this part, this is, to me, the least important part of basketball. It is, because you're not going to face this in postseason.
No, you aren't.
You're not going to somebody else's arena like Auburn where they got 8,000 little kids jumping up and down like 3-year-olds, which is, I don't know, was there any adults at that game?
Yeah, there was. I'm sure there
was a bunch of kids, or they must have set a record for students at a game. But you won't face that in the NCAA tournament. You won't even face it in the SEC tournament. You will be at neutral sites. And so, honestly, when it really matters at the end of the year, it's how do you play on a neutral floor? And I think that's what Musselman does. He tries to get his team ready to do that because that's when it really matters. Yeah,
and you say this game just seemed very outlierish, and it was. I mean, they just didn't look like Arkansas.
I will continue to look for common denominators, but right now I don't see a relationship, a co-relationship between the LSU game and this game. Yeah. And that's the only 2 road games we have right now to judge
the only ones we can actually use.
They were 2 very different games in terms of what Arkansas tried to do and what their game plan was.
Yeah, definitely. Eddie Lynn says, what is going on with Nick Smith Jr.? 2 weeks ago, he was all over the internet that he was done. Last week, all these internet experts started saying he'll be back in February. Well, which is it?
Well, we actually got instead of Musselman talking about it. Look who popped up on Twitter.
Before we filmed this,
Nick Smith Jr. And this is what he said. He said, I'm not here to talk It'll all make sense later. I'm here to work. Okay, that was in a reaction to a tweet by Kamani Johnson, his teammate, who was really ticked off.
Yeah, that people were talking about
what some
him
of these fans were saying.
Yeah.
You know, we talked about that. You weren't here last week, but Alyssa and I talked about this. And I said, look, I have no information. But common sense dictates that if he was done, which is what a lot of people are saying, he would just say it. There wouldn't be any reason not to.
Yeah.
He would just go.
And he wouldn't tweet that.
Yeah, well, especially that now. But he would just go to Southern California and work out where his agent is and get his knee all fixed up and everything and then go from there. And there was none of that. Secondly, people that I know that know him have always told me this is killing him. He wants to be a part of the team. And this is the part that Kamani was dealing with, was all these people. And I just got through defending internet people. Remember
you
that?
Did. You
Saying
did.
nice things.
Yeah.
I have nothing nice to say about somebody who doesn't know an athlete and presumes to know what's in their head.
Yeah.
I hate that.
Yeah.
Because you can criticize their performance athletically.
Yeah.
But when you start saying he's this, he's that, this shows he's like this, when you don't know him, you're taking his life and putting it out there forever and trying to change who he is. And when you don't know, that's the worst thing you can do. So there's no excuse for that. And there was a lot of that going on.
Yeah.
There was a lot of it going on last night. Some people were trying to, on the one Facebook thing, there's a bunch of Facebook people, I know some of those people, and I was following them, and 2 or 3 of them were trying to say, hey, look, you don't know what's going on here. And there were like a bunch of them like, he's just, I don't care what happens to him. He should just sack it up and go.
Wow.
Here's what, again, with no inside information, other than talking to somebody familiar with knee injuries, an orthopedist that knows about knee injuries, this is what I'm saying. It looks like this is tendonitis. It might not be, but it sure looks like that's what the issue is. With tendonitis, regular tendonitis, the tendons get inflamed. One of the ways you treat that is with rest. You don't put pressure, you don't work out, you don't run around like that, and then those tendons go down and then you're okay and you can start up again. Well, he's tried that twice and it's come back. That would indicate maybe it's acute tendonitis, which is a different thing, which there are other treatments for that. So I think he went there to get checked out by somebody really good in the profession to make sure that he didn't have a problem beyond what maybe they thought he had.
Right.
And if all goes well, and let's say he went out there and the swelling was down, they're not going to immediately tell him to start working out again. Let's be extra cautious. Let's rest for another 2 weeks, 3 weeks or whatever, and then start back up. And look, none of this is guaranteed that when he comes back, it won't come back again, because they're dealing with something that's come back twice.
Yeah.
So none of us know exactly what the doctor says to him, what the result of the examination was, or any of that. But that tweet tells me he's coming back and he's going to work.
Yeah.
So stop with all the nonsense about he doesn't care, and you might as well just get rid of him, because I will tell you this, and I said this, if you'll remember, I said they have adjusted well, and at the time it looked like they had without those 2 guys, without he and Trevor in Brazil. But I said there's going to come games that they will lose because they don't have those 2 guys, because that's 2 of the best 3 players they have.
Yeah.
I would throw Black in there. Those are the 3 best players they have. You've lost 2 of them as of right now. You cannot do that and have it not affect your team.
Well, at least their offensive production of those 2 guys. I mean, that was huge.
If he comes back healthy, some of you fans are going to realize he's a lot better than you think he is, because you're judging him based on what he was doing out there when he had this knee problem.
Yeah, and he was still doing well when he had this knee problem. Remember, I mean, he had that stretch of 2 games where he was averaging like 21.5 points over those 2 games.
I think he's even better than that.
I think he's better than that, and that's what I even tweeted out a few weeks ago. I said, look, if he's averaging 21.5 points through 2 games and he's still not 100%,
exactly,
crazy. But we'll see what happens. I talked to our Hoops insider, Kevin McPherson, the other day.
And he had some similar thoughts on that.
Some similar thoughts on that. If you want to go see what his thoughts are, you can go watch our discussion. It's actually on our YouTube, and you can just go. Once you watch Ask Mike,
he
you can
does
go watch
have
that.
some inside information. I know he does,
yeah.
and he's not able to say what he knows, but he's pretty positive about this.
Yeah, and Goodman Hoops tweeted yesterday as well that he has a source that's close to Nick Smith Jr. that says that they have a plan to get him back with the team in February.
Yeah.
So
and again,
we'll see.
The most significant thing is this tweet because he talked about work.
Yeah.
That suggests to me he's fixing to start working again.
Yes.
So
I love that.
That's not bad.
So good news all around,
good.
right? Good news. Hot Dogger says, I know Muss's history at the U of A is to get the team in sync eventually and towards the middle of SEC play. We just kind of talked about that, Mike. Is this the norm for other basketball schools too? Is it different with each coach experience?
I think he's very different from most coaches I've been around. And we've talked about this not so much this year, but last year. He approaches basketball like a lot of coaches approach football. I mean, he does the X's and O's thing with his team every day. He's up there with a chalkboard and all that. You don't think of that with basketball, maybe a few plays. But I think he approaches every game differently. I think they scout the opponents and have a different game plan for each team, which, you know, Nolan was very good at what he did, but Nolan always said, we're not worried about the other team. We do what we do and let them worry about trying to deal with us, and that worked for him. But Musselman, I think, is very much a kind of a guy where he analyzes what the other team does, and then he does what he does. Now, as a result of that, I think you get some things that we've been able to see. For instance, what really I think has changed from January to late February and into March for these teams that we've seen him have at Arkansas is the defense.
Yeah.
They just progressively get better at defense, and I think he's constantly working on that. And once you get into postseason play, that's where you see this really pop up because defense often creates offense.
Yep.
Lack of defense, I think the defense that they didn't, especially the interior defense that we didn't see against Auburn, I think that was part of Arkansas's offensive problem because it puts more pressure on you. You go down the floor, oh no, we're down by 8, we're down by 12. If you're down by 3, it's a totally different mentality when you have the ball. And I think this is what happens when they get later into the season. Their defense is so good that it helps their offense become better.
I think so as well. And I actually do disagree with you, though. I have seen coaches that do follow that kind of plan. My dad's one of them.
I mean, they don't. I'm saying that the ones I've been around at Arkansas, it's not been my impression. They do this the way he does.
I agree with you there, but I think it's interesting to see what other coaches do as well.
Your dad has your brother on the end of the bench. So
what does that mean? He started the other day. Don't you be?
Yeah, I saw him. You showed me. He was sitting down there like he was.
He's been dealing with an injury. He's been nursing an injury.
Okay.
He's like Nick Smith Jr., okay? He's been nursing his little injury, okay? Edward Clutch says, my nephew is going crazy for a Devo Davis jersey, but we can't find them anywhere. I know the NIL football jerseys weren't released until the season was about halfway over. What is the holdup with getting these products to fans who would gladly pay money to support the athletes?
Yeah, I reached out to my contact in the athletic department. He usually gets back to me, and I don't know what's going on there. But so I don't have any information, new information on when these basketball jerseys will be here. He's right. They had a delay last year with the football, and it looks like the same thing is happening with basketball.
Oh.
Now, I did talk to somebody inside the sports merchandising business.
Oh, who is it? Who is it? Who is it?
It'll remain anonymous. But here's what I was told, that Nike is about selling shoes. They are not so much into selling other merchandise like shirts, pullovers, jerseys, things like that. They do it, but shoes are their big deal. He also said Nike isn't really so much about retail sales. They are about getting that logo, that swoosh, in front of people on television. That's where they make their money because people see that and then that sells.
Yeah.
And so having football players or basketball players walk around on campus or having a fan be able to walk around with a logo on there with the name of a player is not necessarily going to do Nike a whole lot of good. It's not part of their mentality. So they're not as motivated to make this happen. It's going to happen.
Yeah.
It's not the gigantic priority for them. They still are about selling their shoes, finding schools to, their effort is, hey, we got this Under Armour school over here. We got to switch them. That's their deal. To get more schools to be Nike, which puts that swoosh out in front of people when it's on television, which in then turn allows them to sell shoes.
That makes sense.
So be patient. It's coming. I'm sure the athletic department is doing everything they can to get these jerseys in here, but I'm told it's a problem with all Nike schools, and that other schools may not have, other companies, Under Armour may not have this issue.
Yeah.
I don't know, but Nike does, and it's just something that they did with football, and now it's affecting basketball. But you'll get your jersey.
Come on, Nike needs to do better. Come on, Nike. Come on. Dr. Strangeport says after attending MBB in the Barn and Bud from the late 70s to mid-90s, was finally able to make my way back and watch the Missouri game. Great game. Sadly, though, I'm not a fan of the DJ, the commercials, and very disappointed in the reduced/limited role of the Hog Wild Band.
Yeah, we get this sometimes, and the best answer I can give you is that DJs are becoming more and more a thing. Generally, the younger people in the crowd like them. Generally, old guys like me want the more traditional band. But it's becoming just more and more of a big deal to have a DJ. But the main thing is recruits are always coming to your games, and guess what they like? They like the DJ.
They love the DJ.
And I'm told that Arkansas's DJ is very good. So that's good for recruiting.
Yep.
So just put up with it. If you're an old guy like me, yeah, they're still going to have the band playing some, but you're going to have to learn to live with the DJ because that's just something new that's not going to go away.
Yeah, and the recruits definitely like it. And our final question of the day, this one's for me, right? Razor
and I
Alex.
get to comment on your answer.
You get to comment on my answer. We're flipping the script, Mike. We're flipping the script.
That's right.
Do you want to read the question then?
This question is from Razor Alex 88 on Hogville, and this question is actually for Courtney. How was your first Razorback Bowl experience? What was your favorite parts aside from the Hog victory?
Oh, that's a great question. I had to think about this one a little bit because my initial answer was going to be, well, the Razorbacks won and they won in a really awesome way. Triple overtime is a pretty cool way to win that one. But Razor Alex said besides the Hog victory. So, I thought
we throw that aside.
So we're throwing that aside. I thought the coolest part, and you might think this is cliche, but I've been to some bowl games, not with Arkansas in them, but I've been to other bowl games. And I have to say, I was worried about the atmosphere because some bowl games that I have been to have been a little lame when it comes to the atmosphere.
Empty seats everywhere.
Empty seats, no one's excited, everyone's just kind of like, we're here. I guess we're enjoying some college football and some, hey, we got these free tickets and we're going to a bowl game, a random bowl game. But the coolest thing about walking into that stadium and seeing how many Hog fans showed up and were excited.
When they weren't supposed to.
When they weren't supposed to. That was what I was just about to say. When they weren't supposed to. When all week long the storyline was Kansas wants to be here more than you guys. Kansas wants to be here more than you guys.
Came from uninformed people on the internet.
Uninformed people on the internet were saying that. And so Hog fans, if you're reading this on social media, you know, you might go, oh, I don't want to go. They say we're going to lose. They say, you know, Kansas wants to be there more. Well, the fact of the matter was that was totally wrong. The Hog fans showed up in full force. It was super exciting to see that atmosphere, to see people so excited to be there. I was just very shocked because I think, and I have to say this, I think that was the most electric bowl game I have ever been to.
Yeah, last week they wanted me to rate the bowl games. I had that number 5 on the list.
That's great.
And I didn't just do that because it just happened. It really was an exciting bowl game.
Yeah, it really was. And I think the fans made it better. They were just really making that experience so much better because it would have been sad to go to triple overtime and not have anybody in the stands. I don't think the Hogs would have been as motivated to come away with a win.
Did you get any good Memphis barbecue?
I did. We did get some good Memphis barbecue. We went to a place called, I think it was called Rendezvous.
Oh, yes,
Is
that place
called
Rendezvous
that everyone goes to. Yeah, Rendezvous. That was pretty good. That was really yummy. They had some ribs. I got some really good ribs, Mike. The meat just fell off the bone.
Now you weren't like chasing bookies up and down Beale Street, were you? I
was not chasing bookies up and down Beale Street.
Trying to place bets.
I wasn't trying to place any bets. I was there to see the game. I was there to cover it. You should have been there, Mike. Come on, next time you're going,
I've been to Memphis many, many times. I've been to the Liberty Bowl. I was flat out worried that it was going to be cold. And of course, when I don't go, then it's not cold.
It wasn't actually
But
that
if
cold.
I had gone to that bowl game, it would have been 2 below zero, I promise you. Last time I was there, I almost froze to death.
Yeah, well, next time you go, hopefully it won't be cold and we can bring you along. The weather will be nice.
I want them to go to better bowls. I want them in the national championship playoff.
Okay, perfect. And then
I'll go there.
But what if it's a cold place, Mike?
Yeah, it won't be.
It won't be. It will be warm. Okay, we'll hold you to that. That's going to do it for this week's Ask Mike. We'll see you next Monday to answer more of your questions.